Greetings, everyone. I wanted to do a couple videos on passages where the Greek might open up some different interpretive possibilities. So you see some of the payoff of all the hard work you've done. Here's one passage where the Greek might suggest some different meaning than you commonly find in the English translations. Romans 3:23. Pontes gar hemarton. We'll just start with that. Pontes is a nominative plural. I often say look for a nominative or look for a conjugated verb. We get both right at the front. So gar, we translate first. For, pontes, all people, hemarton. You might recognize that right away from hamartano. If not, here is our little principal parts chart. Hamartano, to sin, hamarteso, I will sin. And there are two aorists. Hemartesa, a nice normal first aorist, or hemarton, a second aorist. In this case, the first aorist and second aorist are identical in meaning, they're just variant forms. So we're obviously looking at the second aorist, and second aorist endings go on as amen, ete, on. So our on could be first person singular, I sinned, or third person plural, they sinned. Obviously, only one of those is possible because pontes is plural. So, for all have sinned. And here we get to the interesting part. Kai husteruntai tes doxes tu theou. Let's work on that verb, husteruntai. This is from hustereo, and if you just started in the dictionary with the first letters, you wouldn't go far wrong. You might start to be recognizing these sort of connecting vowels, these connecting diphthongs, as signs that you have a contract verb. So husteruntai is present. There's no augment. There's a primary set of endings, entai. And it's middle passive. So if we look in the dictionary, I've just gone to BDAG, the main New Testament lexicon, and we go down to entry 5 for the following reason. Our verb is passive, and the first 4 entries give active meanings of the verb, which mean basically the same thing, to lag behind, to fall short. But in this case, because our verb is passive, we want an entry that gives an example of the passive of the verb. And helpfully, the dictionary notes the passive is followed with the genitive of the thing. We come back to here, husteruntai, tes doxes. There's our first genitive. They what? They lack, they go without, or they come short of. So let's start with the main meaning. They lack the glory of God. The nub of the issue is, should we translate this latter clause like the NRSV, like the King James, like most versions, that people fall short of the glory of God, as if the glory of God were a bar of righteousness and people don't quite reach up to that bar? Or should we translate in a more literal way that the passive of this verb, followed by a genitive, means to lack something? And usually what you'll find commentators and translators who give their notes say is, well, the verb itself in the passive with the genitive would usually mean to lack the glory of God, but we can't see what that would possibly mean, so we're going to translate it to fall short of. But in fact, it's at least possible to imagine quite clearly what it would mean to lack the glory of God, because in much ancient Jewish speculation about Adam, who was created in the image of God, was resplendent and glorious. That is, because he bore the image of God, he had God's glory. He shone like the sun, and therefore when Adam transgressed, or in some versions of the story, when Eve transgressed, Adam just went out like a light bulb. So in that latter way of conceiving the problem, conceiving the human predicament, what's wrong with humanity? It's not simply that they sin and aren't good enough for God. It's that because of sin, they lack the glory of God that was God's original intention for humanity. And you can see that the Greek at least opens another possibility to adjudicate between those options. You would want to do a thorough study of hustereo. You'd want to look at more cases. And you'd want to look at, how would you date the conceptions of Adam's glory? Is that contemporary with Paul's time? Is it possible that Paul was working along those lines? I think you can answer the latter question from Paul's letters. He clearly thinks that way. Anyway, this has been a little glimpse into an interesting verse where a different way of reading Paul opens up when we attend to a seemingly straightforward little phrase.